Good morning, everyone. So as I was meeting with all of you during your pre-PPE conference worksheet, sorry, your pre-PPE conferences to go over your worksheets, there was quite a few questions about the actual final PPE report. So I wanted to just take the next couple weeks to start going over the sections of that report so that you all have a better idea of what is expected of you. So in an effort to keep these recordings shorter, I'm just going to tackle one section per recording or lecture here. I don't want this to be super time consuming. The other thing is that I will be posting some samples for you and a template as well within the next week or so. So several of you have already started on your projects for the PPE. And so I will start off with that section of the report just to make sure that we get off on the right foot, seeing as how that is the first section that you all will probably be addressing. So when you go to the HIM PPE site, I'm going to click on the final PPE report instructions. So what I've done here on this, if you haven't had a chance to really look at it or dive deep, what I've done is I've just provided kind of an outline here. This first part of the page is an outline of what the report should contain. And so section 1 here is the PPE project. And so I'm not going to go into depth right now on these. I'm going to scroll down, because if you scroll down, I have a lot more detail for each section of the report. So here it is, the PPE project, and I'm not going to read the introduction to you during this time. I hope that you all will do that on your own. So some instructions here. First, this portion of the report should be double spaced. Some will exceed 8 pages, but if you can keep it under that, that would be great. Just considering your professor here having to grade them, okay? But that 8 pages doesn't include any figures or tables or appendices, PowerPoint slides, resources, or supporting documentation that you might have used to complete the project. So as you're working through the project, it's really a good idea to kind of keep copies of things that you can, one, share in this report, because it helps provide context for me as I'm reading your report and grading it and things like that. But then also during the seminar course, so next this spring 2022, and I believe most of you will be taking the seminar course during the spring 1 term. These are great things to include in your presentation that you'll be giving during that time, okay? So just keep that in mind as you're working through the project. The other thing here is we'll be looking for a APA formatted reference page if you did use references for your project. Most likely you use some type of reference, whether it was a person, and in that case, you wouldn't have to put that information you obtained into a reference page, because any interviews that are conducted, those are only in-text citations. But if you referenced other resources, say any kind of like statutes, say Minnesota statutes, or the state that you're working in, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Any resources, maybe you went to AHIMA to seek out some guidance there. Maybe you sought out information from just another website or a peer review source. Make sure that you're keeping track of that and that you're starting a reference page for those resources. I'm going to look for you to address 1 through 8 below here, and I'll cover that in a second. The papers should follow the conventions of good professional writing. Of course, I want you to employ effective sentence structure and vocabulary, and definitely proofread and edit it for spelling and grammatical errors. The next thing is of special note. So make sure that you're very sensitive to the fact that you might be working with PHI or protected health information. You might also be just working with information that should be handled in a more sensitive manner. And so if that's the case, I'll be looking for you to maybe provide examples or kind of mock documents to demonstrate the data type that was used for that project. So I'll just give you an example. So in the past, students have maybe been asked to create some type of audit document and then actually conduct an audit, right? And so they would maybe be on the spreadsheet that they were using for the site, enter patient identifiable information, okay? And so if that's the case, obviously you can't share that with me, but what you could do is take a copy of the spreadsheet, not with any PHI on it, but just like the way that you had maybe set up the spreadsheet or the auditing document, and you could put in fake information, Jane Doe, and give a fake address, just to kind of like demonstrate what type of information was being collected on that spreadsheet. And then, but to back up 1 second, if you do have any questions about that, like how to handle your specific situation, don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer questions and support you in this. I want you to be successful in your project, and I also want you to be able to deliver a really great presentation during the seminar course, and obviously complete this report to the best of your ability. So keeping that in mind, okay? All right, so let's start looking at section 1 through 8, where you're going to address this project, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is provide an introduction and overview of the project and include a problem statement. So you'll share your project title. If you don't have a title, talk with your mentor and develop a title. Give me the name and title of your project supervisor, so whoever it was that you worked directly with to complete the project. Then I want you to develop that problem statement. And if you aren't familiar with how to develop a problem statement, I provided a good example right here. It's from this Ashford University. And so it's kind of an interactive document that they have provided to help you in developing the problem statement. So what is it that why is it that you're working on this project? What is the problem that you're trying to address? Okay, so really think about that. I need to just really quick pause and blow my nose because of that sneeze. Maybe I can do that. Let me see here. Pause recording. Okay. Okay, so once you have the problem statement developed, I want you to develop a description for the project. So telling me a little bit about it, not too in depth because you're going to go into a lot more depth in this section of the report. Identify the purpose of the project, any kind of timeline that your project supervisor gave you, and then briefly describe the actual deliverable that they expect you to provide. So is it a presentation? Is it a spreadsheet? Is it some type of document, whatever that is, but just providing a brief explanation of it, okay? Section 2 is your strategy and action plan. So identifying the approaches and strategies you considered in solving the problem or completing the project. So just sharing your kind of thought process there about how you want to approach and kind of tackle the project, right? Define your strategy. So explain that there. Identifying your action plan. So the steps that you're going to take to complete the project. So is it research? Like for example, first I'm going to research blah, 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 and then I'm going to develop a draft, and then I'm going to review this with my project supervisor, and then I'm going to get feedback from employees or whatever that is, okay? But just kind of explaining that. Then the methodology that you used. So if it's strictly like a research type project, just talk about the research that you're conducting, the resources that you use for that, the interviews, the data collection. So any kind of, again, supporting documentation there that you can share would be helpful. Then the results, recommendations, and findings of the project. So what came out of this project, right? So in the end, were there kind of new things that were discovered? Was there recommendations that maybe you made to your project supervisor? What was that? Okay, the kind of the results. And then the deliverable. So maybe your results and was the deliverable, and that's fine. These sections can be kind of merged, but typically there are some other findings or recommendations that come from the project. So, but the deliverable or whatever the end product is that you develop, you need to share that with me, okay, as part of this project. The other thing is if your project supervisor asked you to do a presentation on the project, I want to see that presentation. So sharing the slides that you developed would be really good to put in this section. Okay. And then of course the references and resources. So that APA formatted reference list would be great. And then below here is the grading rubric for this section. Just one quick note on reference pages. So each section of your final PPE report is very unique, and I would like you to have a APA formatted reference page for each of the sections. So don't just give me one really big reference page at the very end of your report. I would rather have you give me the reference page for this specific section at the end of that section, okay? So that I know that like what you use for this portion of the report, okay? I hope that makes sense. So I'm not going to go over the grading rubric because it's very specific and really details what I'll be looking for. So I'll let you take a look at that and focus on that yourself. So, all right. So this concludes the first lecture on the final PPE report. Thanks, everyone. Bye.